Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a realization today that can be pretty uncomfortable for a lot of leaders, especially high-achieving ones. But it's absolutely central to creating any kind of genuine lasting impact.
Mhm.
The sources you shared, they all point to this really profound truth that your greatest professional impact, it was never in the complex strategies you drafted or the revenue targets you hit.
Or the decisions you signed with a fancy pen, as they put it.
Exactly. It was in the human capital, the people who walked beside you, who trusted you, and, who grew because of you.
And that realization, it often comes way too late in a career, doesn't it? We can spend years just polishing our confidence, perfecting the org charts, chasing titles, all while we're overlooking this quiet, powerful force that determines everything.
It determines whether our influence just evaporates the second we move roles.
Right. Or if it multiplies long, long after we're gone.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is really a fundamental perspective shift. We're exploring why influence is something that has to be earned. It's not just assumed because you have a job title.
Yeah.
And why legacy is ultimately measured not by what you accomplish, but by who you intentionally invested in.
And that shift is, it's paramount in the modern professional landscape.
Mm-hmm.
Authority might get you in the door, it gets you a seat at the table, but it's relationship that sustains any kind of true lasting influence.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose that trust, that connection with your team, your positional authority becomes completely hollow.
It's just compliance at that point.
It's just compliance, not collaboration, not real buy-in.
And the urgency of this has never been higher. Organizations are getting flatter, collaboration is everything. And with hybrid work, leaders have to work so much harder just to maintain a natural connection.
They really do. People don't follow a leader anymore just because a box on a chart says they should.
Right.
So influence, the Songses call it the sacred currency of leadership.
I like that. So we're here to look at how we mint it.
And that brings us perfectly to the core tension of it all. The common assumption is that influence is, inextricably tied to rank.
You see the title, you assume the power.
Exactly.
But the sources introduce this counterintuitive principle that influence grows strongest precisely when your positional authority is no longer required.
When it becomes relational.
Not hierarchical.
And this is where we can really examine what the material calls the ultimate investment model, which was really perfected in the ancient world.
Okay, so let's look at that model.
Well, when you analyze the greatest models of enduring influence, you see a pattern. Let's consider the primary case study here. Jesus. He possessed, unmatched authority, and he was fully aware of it. Yet he spent the majority of his time, his working years, investing deeply in just 12 ordinary men.
Creating a leadership pipeline.
Yes. Not just dominating the landscape. He was building for the future.
And it's that paradox in the Gospel of John, in chapter 13, that stands out so starkly.
It really does.
It says he knew the Father had put all things under his power. What an absolute statement of authority.
Unmatched authority.
But what was his next move? What did he do with that power?
He got up from the table, wrapped a towel around his waist.
And started washing their feet. He took on the posture of the lowest household servant.
That single act, it defines the entire blueprint for relational influence. In this paradigm, leadership authority is not, it's not a ladder to climb.
It's a towel to carry.
It's a towel to carry.
Yeah.
If we translate that, it means actively looking for ways to remove obstacles for your team.
Not just delegating tasks down to them.
Exactly. Greatness is measured not by how many people serve you, but by how many people you serve.
And that is the critical distinction, isn't it? Authority, that can be assigned. You get a promotion, you sign a contract, it's transactional.
It is.
But influence is earned. It's earned through character, faithfulness, and that intentional, prolonged investment in relationship.
It's transformational.
So if Jesus set the standard for that kind of service leadership,
then the sources show us how the Apostle Paul really translated that into an enduring kind of scalable operational leadership.
Okay, so let's turn to that case study. The one about the Ephesian elders in Acts chapter 20.
Right.
Paul gathers these leaders for what he knows is his final conversation with them. It's a moment of immense consequence.
Huge consequence. And he could have used that time to deliver a 10-point strategic plan, right?
Or an updated compliance manual or market projection.
Sure. But he didn't. He gave them his history. He gave them his heart.
I find that so fascinating. Why did he choose emotion and vulnerability over, pure data in that final moment? What was the payoff?
Well, the outcome says it all. The elders, they wept aloud, they embraced him, they kissed him.
They weren't responding to a strategy document.
No, they were responding to a spiritual father. They were responding to a relationship.
So he anchored everything on their shared life.
He did. He reminds them how I lived among them. That farewell, it reveals 3 crucial details for lasting influence, and they all start with genuine proximity.
And that's detail 1, presence over platform.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's life was his curriculum. He knew that leadership influence flows from proximity. You just can't shape hearts or build deep trust from some distant supervisory platform.
You can't. And that leads to detail 2, humility and tears. Paul says he served with great humility and with tears. Now, this is a crucial point
Yeah.
because modern leadership culture often mistakes emotional control for strength.
Right, you have to be unflappable.
Exactly. But Paul showed that emotional vulnerability wasn't a liability. It was an instrument of influence. It built connection.
But hold on, let's stop there for a second. In today's corporate world, isn't that kind of vulnerability still, often penalized, especially for new managers or executives? How do you balance that genuine feeling with the pressure to project pure competence all the time?
That's a really necessary check. And the sources aren't advocating for fragility. They're defining intentional, shared humanity. Paul's tears weren't about weakness.
They were about commitment.
They were evidence of his commitment to the relationship, to the mission. It showed the elders that the mission mattered enough to him to cause him pain.
And that gives your team permission to care as deeply as you do.
Precisely. You can't lead deeply if you can't feel deeply.
That makes sense. It's about being authentic and invested, not just performing a role.
Right. And the third detail is the shared mission. Paul taught publicly and from house to house.
So not just on a stage.
Not just on a stage.
Yeah.
Transformative leadership is often delivered around tables, weaving deep truth and mentorship into the daily fabric of life. That shared proximity, it solidifies the bond.
So the outcome is really clear. Leadership that outlives the leader is always relational.
Always.
Paul's title, his position, gave him access to those cities. But his relationships, his service, his tears, his shared life, that gave him the enduring influence.
And that's what kept the mission running long after he was physically gone.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, what happens when leaders neglect this relational capital? We've seen the beautiful side, the multiplication, but now we have to acknowledge the dark side.
We do. The sources warn that broken relationships always precede broken leadership. Influence erodes the moment relationship erodes.
This is where it gets really important, I think. We see these painful historical warnings about relational failure everywhere.
Look at King Saul. He was chosen as the first king, given the highest positional authority imaginable at the time. Yet he became obsessed with preserving his rank, clinging to the symbols of power, his crown, his status.
And while he was doing that,
He was losing the hearts of his people and his key advisors. It led to profound isolation.
he focused only on the title and he forgot that the people were the mission.
He did. And the cost of that isolation is immense. You lose your sounding board, you lose your sight lines, you start making decisions based purely on self-preservation.
Or what about Rehoboam, Solomon's son?
Another perfect example. He faced a massive relational crisis right at the start of his reign. He gets counsel from 2 groups, the wise elders, who had relational memory and experience, and his young, inexperienced peers.
Who just offered arrogance.
Right. And Rehoboam rejected the elders. He chose to inflate his own importance rather than listen to relational truth.
And the consequence wasn't just, low morale or a bad quarterly report.
Not at all. It was the catastrophic splitting of the entire kingdom.
His whole enterprise, destroyed by arrogance and a failure to listen.
These warnings, they contrast so sharply with the power of relational investment as a multiplication engine.
So we move from addition to geometric growth.
Exactly. And we see this principle distilled perfectly in the succession planning model in 2 Timothy chapter 2, where the leader, Paul, instructs his mentee, Timothy, to entrust the things you've learned to faithful people who will be able to teach others also.
Wow. That one sentence, it establishes a 4-generation chain of influence. You've got Paul to Timothy to faithful people.
To others.
It's a geometric growth model.
It is, and this is the difference between leading a small team and building an entire movement. Legacy is created not by what you hoard like King Saul, but by what you deliberately hand off.
What you entrust to others.
Right. So the challenge for today's leader is, how do you identify those faithful people, and how do you entrust the knowledge so they can actually succeed?
This moves us from philosophy to action, which is great. So, what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? We've established that influence is earned, that it's a sacred currency. How do we measure and manage it intentionally so we don't end up isolated like Saul?
Well, we have to move from just being reactive managers to being strategically relational leaders. And the sources introduce a really powerful tool for this, the relationship audit.
A relationship audit.
Yes, it's an exercise in self-awareness and intentional stewardship. It forces you to treat your relationships as your most valuable assets.
So the goal of the audit isn't just to list names and job titles.
Not at all. The goal is to make you examine the real level of trust, of clarity, and mutual influence within each core connection you have.
So you know where your relational energy is flowing.
And, more importantly, where it should be flowing.
Okay, so how do you do this audit?
It has to be guided by the 3 relational pillars that ultimately determine your influence and your legacy. The first pillar is presence.
Mm.
And this isn't just about showing up for a scheduled meeting. It's the consistency and the sincerity of your companionship.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask yourself, am I consistently accessible or am I constantly insulated? Do I prioritize quality, uninterrupted time with my key people?
So if Paul's life was his curriculum, then our presence is our lesson plan.
That's a great way to put it.
And if we're constantly distracted, that lesson plan is just telling them, my time is more valuable than yours.
Exactly. The second pillar is connection. This refers to the depth of your engagement. Are you really listening, investing emotionally, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? True connection requires intentional vulnerability, sharing relevant parts of your own struggle, asking penetrating questions about theirs.
Do you know what matters to your key people outside of their job description?
Right. And that moves you away from just transactional management where you only connect about deliverables.
To something much deeper.
Absolutely. And the third pillar is shared mission. Is there a genuine alignment of purpose? People don't follow you just because you hold the budget.
No.
They follow you because they believe in the mission you share. So the audit requires you to assess. Have I clearly articulated that shared purpose?
And am I actively seeking their unique contributions?
Yes. Are they co-creators of the mission or are they just followers of your strategy?
The relationship audit, then, it fundamentally shifts leadership from being accidental to being strategic.
It forces you to prioritize, to invest energy in the people who are going to multiply your effectiveness. Because in the end, leadership is stewardship, not ownership.
And if you don't intentionally audit and invest in those relationships,
you risk neglecting the very individuals who are positioned to carry your mission forward, geometrically, transforming your accomplishments into an enduring legacy.
And that brings us full circle. We moved from the fragility of positional authority to the enduring power of relational influence. We used the models of Jesus and Paul to completely redefine what true greatness and sustained impact really looks like.
The goal is leadership that endures.
Yeah.
Long after your role has shifted or your season has ended. And if you internalize just one challenge from this deep dive, let it be this final provocative thought for reflection.
Think about this as you move forward. True leadership, it's about cultivating people, not just systems.
Ask yourself this question. Who carries your mission forward when you're not physically present? That relational scaffolding built through intentional presence, connection, and a shared mission that determines the enduring nature of your influence. Because when you invest in people, your impact continues long after you've moved on, transforming how others grow because of you.